Hey guys, another Sunday. Beautiful weather today, and I actually got some sun, so I wore the white tank top to show off how not white I am anymore. Figured it'd be a good way to go. So, as I promised you last week, the topic of this week's video is going to be alcohol use, more specifically chronic alcohol use, i.e. consistent daily or every other day, whatever, however you want to phrase it, but consistent alcohol use over time and the overall effects it has on the body and how minorly harmful yet majorly harmful it is. Obviously, a topic that hits close to home for a number of reasons, and difficult for me a bit to put personal biases aside, but I am going to try and do the best that I can because I want to try to give you a little bit more of an objective, sort of all-around, more scientific approach to this so that you can get a better understanding of how to think about it, or at least the effects that it has. It's not as harmless as you think. And I'm going to talk a little bit about marijuana too, because I think that it's an important thing to kind of be a little bit more even on this. I mean, I'm a marijuana user myself, albeit a slight bit, but I'll talk to you about my own experiences as it comes more towards the end of the video. But I think this is an important thing for people to realize. I think that people use their vices and distractions as coping mechanisms for a lot of different things, but I don't think they fully understand them. And so maybe I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up here. So I guess, I don't know, let's fucking talk about it or something. So rather than sitting here having a political discussion or a moralistic discussion, I don't think that that's appropriate in this sense. What I'd rather do is talk to it from more of a scientific breakdown and more of a biological perspective, just to give you an idea of what actually happens when you drink alcohol. I was originally inspired to start thinking along these lines from a lecture from a guy named Dr. Robert Lustig. There's a few of them on YouTube that he did, actually at universities that were pretty fascinating. Albeit his speech pattern is a bit hyperbolic, and he does have sort of like a Chicken Little mentality to him when it comes to talking about alcohol, and in particular sugar and processed syrups like high fructose corn syrup, things like that. But he does raise some interesting points about the parallels between alcohol metabolism and fructose. And the main thing is that both of these are metabolized in very similar ways and can have negative consequences down the road, but they're not going to concentrate on sugar. I mean, come on, like, you don't want to hear about that. So alcohol, in saving you a long-winded 45-minute explanation about how this is processed in your body, essentially comes down to a byproduct of alcohol metabolism called acetaldehyde. And acetaldehyde is a super toxic substance that is ultimately released into your body as you drink alcohol. And obviously it's proportional to the amount of alcohol that you drink in the time frame that you drink it in. And this is an incredibly powerfully destructive substance in terms of inflammation. It actually creates an immune reaction because, again, alcohol in and of itself is a foreign substance to your body. There's no biological need for it. It is a toxin. And so when you bring it into your body, immune reactions will happen and it will cause inflammation. Now, not just in your liver, but in other areas of your body, but in particular your liver, because obviously this is where the bulk of the alcohol is metabolized. In fact, I think it's 80% of alcohol is metabolized in your liver, 5% in your brain, and other parts of it in your body throughout. But regardless, what ends up happening is a significant amount of inflammation is released as you drink alcohol. These acetaldehydes are actually what make you feel hungover the next day. The amount of toxic buildup in your system. Headaches, muscle aches, obviously nausea, things like that come into play. But over a long period of time, this will actually damage the liver and inhibit its ability to process free fatty acids. So as you take in fat through your diet, or as your gut microbiome ferments insoluble fiber, creates small chain fatty acids, your body wants to use those for energy, or if your body tries to break down its own fat, it simply can't do so because the liver's so busy taking care of these acetaldehydes. And as that happens, chronic inflammation really builds up and fat storage builds up as well. Now we'll circle around to the fat storage problem of this in a bit, but really, more or less is cosmetic until it gets to a extreme degree. But the other part of it too is that these acetaldehydes don't just affect the liver. It creates systemic inflammation throughout the body, your heart, various other organs. And so there are obviously possibilities of long-term chronic use of liver disease, heart disease, cirrhosis, strokes, kidney failure, things like that. But realistically, I'm trying my best not to chicken little this, but you are putting significant stress on your body when you drink constantly. And so I guess that's really the moral of it. Rather than sounding like a blog or something like that, the point of the matter is as you drink alcohol, if you do it daily, you are not giving your body a chance to recover from the damage that you put on. And over time, that inflammation can build up. Now, the thing about alcohol and fatty acid oxidation and fatty acid utilization is if your body can't use fats for energy, it stores them. And you see the traditional beer gut, you see these people that sort of just look a little bit heavier, maybe look a little bit sort of fluffy. I don't know how else to phrase this without sounding like a total asshole. But you see a general look in people who drink chronically. They just look sort of overinflated or a bit flabby or a bit just, I guess, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to be so nice about this, but they look kind of fat and terrible. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that, yes, like I said earlier, acetaldehydes will inhibit the liver's ability to process fats. It also increases hormone-sensitive lipase. And hormone-sensitive lipase actually inhibits the breakdown of fatty acids as well. So all of these components are coming into play. And then, let's be honest, I mean, if you are drinking, even if it is just a little bit, more often than not, you're not making the best dietary choices. And so you're choosing foods with higher levels of fat, higher levels of saturated fat, higher levels of just trash junk food, right? And so if you're already inhibiting your body's ability to process these fats and from multiple angles, and you're taking in food that you shouldn't be eating anyways, and by the way, free fatty acids are one thing, but sugars can also be stored as fat as well, because if there is excess sugar in the blood and insulin can't store it, then the signaling is to go store it in fat cells. It's a vicious cycle that alcohol simply just feeds. Now, vanity is one thing, and for some people it's motivating, like me, for sure. But for a lot of other people, the vanity thing doesn't necessarily matter, but one of the more lesser thought about consequences of chronic alcohol use is the brain damage that can come from it. Now, overusing alcohol can inhibit your body's ability to process or store vitamin B1. And a thiamine deficiency is actually a very serious thing called Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. And that can lead to some pretty serious levels of atrophy, which can cause various symptoms like confusion, memory loss, changes in vision, etc. So definitely something to be aware of. And alcohol, when it's used chronically over time, can lead to atrophy in certain parts of the brain. People forget things easier, less executive function on their own end. It's a pretty, again, the problem with saying these things out loud is it makes it sound really bleak, and it's not as bleak as I want it. It's hard to say, but it's not as doomsday prophecy as I'm sounding like it to be. I'm just relaying information to you, but I'm going to tie it all together at the end, and I hope that it makes sense and this video isn't fucking 45 minutes. Now, I'm sitting here just shitting on alcohol, but the fact of the matter is marijuana, when used chronically, can be just as bad. There are numerous studies that show impaired blood flow to, again, parts of the brain that show memory, sometimes coordination, vision. It can increase hypertension problems if you already have that. It can cause irregular heartbeats. There are problems that can come from marijuana use. Neither of these two are consequence-free. And I think that that's an important distinction to make, even if you do use them. So, after relaying to you a bunch of information that sounds just like the world's going to end, let me tie this together with a little bit of opinion and some perspective, and hopefully this sort of makes this a little bit easier to stomach. First of all, if you like alcohol, by all means, enjoy it. Life's short. Have a good time, right? In my opinion, I think that there are varying levels of destructiveness that alcohol can have. And again, I think the more natural the source, the less destruction it will have, especially if you use it often, or if you go through periods of your life where you use it a bit often. Things like wine. Wine, for all intents and purposes, if you leave grape juice out in the open, it can turn into wine. It'll suck, but it'll technically be wine. Ambient yeast in the air will eat the sugars, convert it into alcohol. It'll be fine. And beer is not very different. I mean, obviously, you take the barley, you germinate it, it starts to sprout, it creates a bit of sugar. You use that sugar to ferment, you create a wort, and blah, 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 whatever. I'm a som, I'm a nerd about this shit. I know how it works, right? It's stupid. So wine and beer, for the most part, I mean, they're relatively natural. They've been consumed for thousands of years. They're part of human evolution and history. I mean, they talk about both of these in the Bible. And I think that when enjoyed moderately, I think they're fine. In all honesty, like, I have not, especially at this point, I'm not much of a beer drinker, but I do enjoy wine, particularly German Riesling, because I'm apparently a 16-year-old girl when it comes to wine. But that's my thing. And you know, every once in a while, sure, enjoy yourself. You know, like you in life, you work hard, you sacrifice things, you go through struggles. It's important to enjoy the benefits that life offers. I definitely think you should. Where the problem comes in is the concentration of these psychoactive sources. So in alcohol, I think distilled spirits can be a very dangerous tightrope to walk. I think that there is a lot of nuance, and I think that the production of these, especially at a high end, just like anything, is fascinating. And I think that it's something that, again, if you really enjoy, by all means, go ahead and enjoy it, but just be wary of it. I find that people who overuse distilled spirits daily can often show some of the signs that I'm talking about here over time. And even if they're not showing a lot of these signs, they're still showing some pretty significant premature aging. You can see it in their skin. You can see the inflammation in their skin, their hair, their eyes sometimes. Maybe they just don't look that great. It's a low-grade thing, but chronically over time, it just takes away part of you, you know, and it can certainly affect your life. It's not going to be night and day difference of, like, you know, from being sober, you're going to be a Rhodes Scholar. If you have 3 glasses of wine a night for a month, all of a sudden you're going to be homeless. Like, it doesn't work like that, but, you know, you can certainly notice a difference in somebody who's a chronic alcohol user in points in their life from when they're not. And likewise, I think the same is with marijuana too. I think that marijuana once in a while is a fantastic thing, and I think for some, it's incredibly necessary. As a matter of fact, I think it's a great spiritual practice when used properly. It brings you closer to your mind and your body and your spirit. I think it's a fantastic thing. But when used over time, it can ultimately distract you. And like I said, it can cause a bunch of these issues. It can sort of create a bit of a separation from reality, albeit not in terms of what one would imagine from, say, like schizophrenia. But it certainly messes with your perception of the world. I can speak from experience because I've been a heavy marijuana user at points in my life, and you don't see things the same. You don't think the same. In addition, I can certainly speak of the cognitive impairment when using marijuana often as well. But once in a while, I think it's a very valuable thing. I think if you're starting to get down the road of concentrates with marijuana, like waxes or oils or any number of those things, I think you're taking a product that existed in nature, and I think that you are concentrating the bad parts of it. This is what's done with cocaine. This is what's done with heroin. This is what's done with some pretty serious drugs. It's no different. They take natural things like a poppy plant, a poppy flower. They concentrate the sap and to get the psychoactive compound. Same thing with cocaine. They take coca leaves and they process it in such a way that concentrates the active ingredient in these coca leaves. So the more you remove something from its natural state, the more likely you are to experience problems because your body simply doesn't have the tools to deal with these things. So in conclusion, enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. If you like drinking, have some drinks. If you like smoking weed, blast off. Have fun, man. If you like any of these things, then by all means enjoy them. Life is meant to be enjoyed. However, when it becomes a nightly or a daily or a consistent thing, I think it's important to take a step back and look at why you're doing that. More often than not, there's something external going on in your life that you are distracting yourself from feeling. And the more you run and distract yourself from that, the larger this issue becomes, and over time, it consumes you and it just becomes who you are. And the saddest part of that to me is the opportunity cost of your life. Because if you're doing these things consistently, there's no way you can operate at your optimal self and give whatever gift that you have to the world. Because the world needs your gift. Whoever you are and whatever it is, the world needs what you have to offer. And by using these substances every day, you are doing the world a disservice, in my opinion, by not being who you are and giving your gift to the world. Because it is valuable. And even if you don't think it is, I promise it is. So if you are somebody that this video pissed off and triggered a little bit because maybe I said something that hit close to home, do some soul searching. Come talk to me, because you probably know me. I mean, not very many people watch these things, so I got you, fam. Like, I've been there, done that, and been through it on every end of it. So I'd be more than happy to be an ear for you and talk you through whatever it is that you would like to talk through. So either way, enjoy yourself, find balance, and yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think of a way to end this video. So here you go. Bye.